Καλημέρα και από μένα. Είμαι ο Νίκος Stergiopoulos, είμαι καθηγητής ιατρικής τεχνολογίας στο Πολυτεχνείο της Λοζάνης, στο EPFL. Σίγουρα όχι expert σε AI και έχω τη χαρά να έχω να διευθύνω, ας πούμε, αυτό το πάνελ, το οποίο έχει σαν θέμα Trends and Challenges in Entrepreneurship for Health in the Era of AI. We'll stick to English, I think, right? Yes. Overall, yeah. So, as a very short intro, it's clear, I think, to everybody that we are living in a period of transformative period based on AI. Things will change, and we're reshaping a lot of things. We're reshaping, I think, the way we will diagnose, treat, or even prevent disease. And this will present certainly challenges and opportunities for those that will venture into the health space. And I'm happy to have an outstanding group of people here to discuss some of these aspects. People from the diaspora and some people from Greece. With expertise spanning from research to academia and from entrepreneurship to investing. Okay, so I think we can cover a lot of aspects. Let me do a short introduction to each one of the panel members. Starting with Lampros, who was a late addition to the group. Thank you, Lampros, for joining here. So Lampros is...
And the displacement.
Exactly. So Lampros works with a diagnostics accelerator, which is a $100 million life science foundation from Gates Ventures, and with the Alzheimer Drug Discovery Foundation, which is a New York-based foundation. He has founded companies himself, so he's a founder, an entrepreneur, like Biomedica, got an exit sometime in 2016, and has founded also a very interesting biomaterials company, HIAS, in Boston. Worked for many years with Eli Lilly, the Innovation Center out in Boston. And he's a PhD from Stanford in bioengineering. Inventor himself, and lately also aspiring to develop his own investment fund here in Athens. Hopefully this will materialize soon. So, next to Lampros we have Kyrpides. More of a research profile, and a great addition to this group. So, Nikos, he's an expert in microbiome genomics. He runs the joint genome, the microbiome data science program, the Joint Genome Institute, which is at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in California, and has a rather impressive record in publications and citations. I'll skip the numbers, but he's recognized globally as a leader in his research. So thank you for being here, Nico. Next, we have somebody with a lot of track record in many things. So Simos, Simeonidis, thank you, Simo. He started actually as a faculty member at Harvard, and then he moved on into the industry, the corporate world, doing business development for Novartis for some years, then moved to Wall Street as an analyst in biotechnology, and then ventured into as partner, senior managing director at Sarissa Capital and the Ali Bridge Group, both biotech funds at the $1.5 to $2 billion under management, so significant funds. So we'll greatly appreciate your contribution, Simo. And then we have Dimitrios Skaltsas, who is the CEO and co-founder of Intelligencia AI. That fits very well to our discussion today. So he has led this company, which actually a few years ago closed their Series A round and made it to the top list of Forbes in the AI business worldwide. Congratulations. And he also worked on a strategic partnership with HIAS, a global professional services company. So with all that, I think it's right time to start talking about our subject. So I'd like to start with Simos. Simo. So we have all this discussion about AI, which touches so many aspects of our lives and industries and so on. But in specific for healthcare and how do the investors feel about all this space of AI in this particular space in the health sector?
Thank you, Nico, and thanks everyone for being here. Investors are optimistic and bullish in a lot of aspects of AI. However, they're also pretty cautious. So I know these two things are different. I think people understand that AI has tremendous potential to change, to impact healthcare in a very significant way, especially in my area of expertise in drug development. And I agree with that. I think it's the way drugs are designed, developed, and commercialized even is going to be improved by the use of AI. On the other hand, public investors that have invested in companies that are already in the public markets, have not done well. They've done very badly, I should say, most of them. If you look at some of the AI companies that have been, considered unicorns and have gone public in big fanfare, and made a lot of money for their VCs. When they went to the public markets, if you look at a lot of them, their value off their peak is down 90%, which means if you invested $100 in a company, you have 10 or less. So that's not unusual in any hot space. I think it speaks to a few things, including investing at the right time, the right maturity phase of the company, understanding what you're investing in. And I think now that valuations have come down to reality, there's a lot of opportunities there. But the interest of the people who are going to buy this technology, namely big pharma companies, understand that there's a lot to do, a lot to improve, and that AI can be a very significant contributor. So I think people are, when they're looking at AI, they do see the potential, but they're becoming a lot more price sensitive.
Thank you. Dimitri, if I just come with a very short question to you. So do you think AI is more disruptive or transformative?
It depends. In our case, we're...
Specifically for the health...
Yeah. In our case, we're an AI company in the sense that we have patent technology based on AI. Still, what we do provide the markets, mostly pharmaceutical companies, is decision support systems, right? That's not disruptive, that's transformative. It adds value by supporting existing workflows, by helping people do things better, faster. Now, there are parts of the industry, if I'm thinking AI in drug discovery, though to a large extent, the promise has not materialized, like Simos point before, like companies like Recursion, they trade at 9% down from their price when they had their IPO. That prompts to be disruptive. So if you manage to create an end-to-end value, say based on AI, which may happen at some point or may not happen, that's transformative. So it does depend.
So I can rebound on this question maybe with Lampros. What do you think are the most promising applications of AI transforming healthcare today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are 5 or 6 areas where we're going to see AI really changing and transforming life sciences and healthcare. One is image processing, where we have Path AI, companies like Path AI looking at your tissue pathology. I had a personal experience where I found out that when you send a biopsy to the lab, the accuracy is 60 to 70%. That's not too far from flipping a coin to tell you whether you have cancer or not, right? With Path AI, you go up to 95, 98%. So the obvious question is, we want all our slides to be looked by an AI agent. On the image processing side, also, we're looking at technologies like for MRI and CT scanning, technologies like Sybil, where you do a low-dose CT scan, and it can predict with 78% accuracy whether you're going to develop and where you're going to develop lung cancer, for example. So anybody that smoked, you go and do a low-dose CT, and you can identify areas that 5 years later you're going to be diagnosed with lung cancer. And that's transformative, right? The other area that I think we're going to see a lot of transformation is agents and copilots for the practitioner. I mean, you probably have seen that little picture of that little girl painting, drawing what her view of going to the doctor is, where she sits on one corner of the room with mom, and then the doctor is on the other corner, doing data entry. And anybody that's lived in the US, you'll see that the doctor never sees you. They actually look at the computer. So now you have technologies like Nabla, Ambience, where during the visit, it actually summarizes the meeting or the visit and goes straight to the EMR. So your record doesn't need a doctor, a highly paid doctor, to do data entries, for example. The other area that I think that is going to be also transformed is big data, genomics, proteomics, and companies like Tempus, where you have, again, tissue, and they do sequencing, and they can tell you exactly what form of mutation is out there. And of course, you can find personalized medication, personalized treatments for that. So that's also going to be big. Another one that I like a lot is home-based monitoring and monitoring. Companies like Whoop, companies like Aura. I mean, a lot of us are using these technologies to track a lot of our metrics, right? And then, of course, something that sits at the core of what I do, digital biomarkers, where you have companies like Winterlight. Winterlight is taking my speech as I'm speaking, and there's about 100 microphones in this room, right? So a lot of access to this, and looks at specific patterns in my voice that can predict diseases. So there's this famous article that came out a few years ago where they actually took recordings from the Framingham cohorts, and they actually were able to predict who is going to get Alzheimer's 15 years before they were actually diagnosed. That's amazing. 15 years to be able to predict that you're going to come up with a condition that's non-reversible. There's companies like Kintsugi, where they actually, again, use voice to detect and measure mental diseases like depression. There's this great company called Kourtis, I don't know if Dimitrios is here today, where they're using wearable technology and AI to quantify symptoms of Parkinson's and create quality of life metrics. So, and of course, use that to titrate the medication, instead of taking one pill in the morning, one in the afternoon, you're actually titrating so that your Parkinson's symptoms are improved and you don't have the side effects of dopamine. And the last one, which I think is going to be the holy grail, is the AI in discovery, down to the molecular simulations where you're actually going to have to be modeling proteins, entire proteins, their interactions with drug, in order to discover and screen thousands of billions of molecules, with the holy grail being a full cell in full dynamic, molecular dynamic analysis. So I think these are the 5 or 6 areas that I can think of that can transform healthcare.
Very good, Lampros. Let me go to a little bit more research-oriented, because research is the base of a lot of things. And Nico, I'd like to get your opinion on how do you see academic research playing or shaping the next generation of health startups and technologies?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to say that Lampros completely nailed it with respect to AI. These are indeed the areas that we expect AI is going to transform life sciences. But I would like to add, before I move to the next question, I would like to add that AI is not here alone. AI has found a very fertile ground in life sciences that wouldn't be possible without the revolution we have already experienced through the interdisciplinarity, let's say, of sciences. Engineering, math, chemistry have completely transformed, and particularly engineering has completely transformed life sciences. It has become a data science, and this is where now AI is coming and founding a fertile ground pretty much to accelerate innovation. I was trying to find, while Lampros was speaking actually, an example of for how we see AI in the field. And I don't know if it's going to be a successful example, but I thought it's almost like a rocket that can take us to another planet in a fraction of the time we go today. But it cannot allow us to survive in another planet if all of the other research is not going to be there. So yes, we're looking at AI right now as a sort of a miracle, but we should never forget that it's not alone, and the fact that we have all the data. If the data will disappear, AI is not going to do anything. So it's a combination of all those things. And this is very important because we do not want to put all of our eggs in the AI basket in research, and that's very important. So moving now to the main question, the foundation of entrepreneurship and of industry in the US is universities. This is where the vast majority of startups are coming up. And we heard a question before, how important is this and what's happening in Greece with respect to that. It's the young generation and the people in the universities, the graduate students and the undergraduate students that have the passion and the intensity pretty much to move industry forward. And this is not happening in Greece, unfortunately. Over the last couple of years, we have created a non-profit organization that we call By Innovation Greece, with specific focusing in biotechnology. And the main emphasis we're trying to show is how to make this connection, this bridge between universities and industry. The current situation, I would say, is not really promising in the sense that universities are cut from industry. There are a lot of positive steps that have been made the last few years, but there is still, what we have not seen is a change in philosophy, in the students as well. We are seeing students that are coming to conferences, they are saying, we thought this is going to be a scientific conference. We didn't expect to see so many companies, and they're saying this negatively. And that gives us the impression and the understanding that something is not working here. And exactly this connection and transformation happening from the universities. Again, there are very positive steps the last few years, but I think we have a long way to go to move forward. So.
Definitely a point that we have seen in the past, Nico. Thank you for pointing this out. Let me go to Simo and rebound on what I asked Lampros. Simo, I'd like to see also what do you think about good examples of areas where you think AI can make a significant impact in the health industry.
Yeah, I think for me, drug discovery is the biggest one, and I think in the eyes of investors is the most valuable one, because if you are successful in designing the right molecule, that's where the majority of the value will come, because whether you make a molecule in Greece or in San Francisco or Boston, if it's the right molecule, it will work. However, I have to say that as of today, the promise of AI in drug development has been disappointing. Which I don't say that in a negative way. I believe that AI will help design better molecules. I think we don't have the right technology yet. We haven't taught the programs the right stuff. I remember specifically when I was offered shares in Recursion, which was the hottest company in the space, and I had a lot of questions, and the management team and the bankers were saying, take it or leave it. This is a 3 times oversubscribed, and I gladly not take it because I had a lot of questions. Myself and other sophisticated healthcare investors that had seen a lot of first generation technologies not work. I don't mean to be negative. I think what these companies doing what they're doing is extremely valuable, because through their inevitable failures, because most of these companies will fail, will have learnings that will build 2.0 and 3.0 technologies. It's no different than antibodies and antisense. There's a company called Ionis. It used to be called ISIS, and for obvious reasons they changed their name. And they were the leader in antisense technology in 1980s. The guy Stan Crook was a brilliant chemist who designed the first antisense molecules, and they were successful. They were an overnight 30-year success. So I used to cover them as an analyst. I invested in them, and their value trend around zero most of the time. Now they're, 15, 20 billion in. So they didn't fail. It's just that the technical aspects of it are so complex that it would take a few iterations. Same for antibodies. Centocor and all the first antibody companies were a joke in the eyes of a lot of people, because they were trading at cents at a dollar before they became a multi-billion-dollar industry. I think AI is going to be the same, but a lot of people are going to get disappointed. They're going to lose faith and lose a lot of money and their jobs. However, I think through these failures, we'll acquire knowledge that will be fed into the next generation of AI companies, and eventually, I don't know if it's going to be 5 years or 10 years, that area of drug discovery is going to be transformed. The same goes for animal testing, preclinical testing. Right now we're using our main model for testing drugs is small animals, mainly mice, which most biologists agree that it's not a good system. It's the closest that we have in addition to primates, but I was telling somebody that I've seen thousands of times cancer being cured in mice, because they're not fake. You do cure cancer in mice in many ways, but the physiology of the mouse is so much different. The lifespan of the mouse is different, and that makes a big difference. That's why 99% of these discoveries fail. I think we'll be able to use AI to train other systems, whether they're, I'm not smart enough to know what the systems are, but some people talk about organoids. I don't think that's the answer, but a mixture of modeling and animal systems will help us get to the clinic faster.
But just to comment, if I may, we've seen waves of technologies develop. And every time a wave has this kind of a problem, we anticipate things to happen much faster, but it becomes mature a little later than we always anticipate. And we had these disappointments in the past as well. Let me ask Dimitri a different kind of a question here. So healthcare industry generates a tremendous amount of data, 30%, let's say, of world data today. Can you say something about the importance of the data and how AI can be used here to do something more efficiently?
More than happy to. Nico will allow me to comment a bit on what we heard. Actually, I didn't know the IC since then. It's one of our customers. I can take it back to them. But more importantly, it's, this version 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, it applies to the broader industry. It applies to companies like I experienced with Intelligencia. Like the market says, the technology says you have to adjust and you have to take the long-term view. I see most of my co-panelists are investors. I'm not, I'm a founder. I'm building a business. But I think it applies to all people involved in the industry. You have to take the long-term view. Like we're fortunate with some of our investors are taking the long-term view. I'm taking the long-term view. That's the only way for AI to be successful, or the implementation of AI or of any technology to be successful. You have to learn the market, you have to adjust to the market, you have to go with the market, you have to reinvent yourself at times. Now, to the question on data, yeah, if someone discusses AI, it has to start with data, like garbage in, garbage out. And I've been in the space since 2015. So before I found Intelligencia, I had an opportunity in the US with McKinsey to build applications on AI and big data. And it was pretty much the same challenges as the industry is facing now. And I think increasingly, this core notion of data comes home for most people. Because there's a lot of excitement, a lot of, we'll build application on A, B, C. If you don't have the data, or if you don't have the right data, or if you don't know how to clean up the data, then you don't have any trustworthy AI. Often when I go to customers, I lead with this, like, trusted AI. And always the premise for that is high quality data. It applies to the industry. It applies also to states. Often when I'm in Greece and I discuss AI and data, I'm saying, okay, great. I love that the country is building an AI strategy. We need that. It has to start with data. When it comes to healthcare, indeed, vast amounts of data are being generated, and I expect going forward, there will be more and more because of the Aura rings of the world that Lampros mentioned, like, tracking our own biometrics data. Because of more electronic medical records, because of a lot of things that are happening right now. The more we can create this data, generate this data in clean forms, the more we can bring together this data, the more the country can either help build AI companies. There's this emerging ecosystem now. There will be 2 or 3 new funds based on health tech, on life sciences, on biotech, and so on and so forth. There's an opportunity to generate AI, but Greece is a small country. You need access to data, either through the academia or through the national health system, or through some means, right? But then, beyond the entrepreneurship, the world that I live in, if I'm thinking broadly, like, if you don't have the data, then you cannot leverage innovation that comes from outside. If I'm thinking Greece, like, we run the risk, specifically healthcare, we run the risk of, an opening gap in the quality of services. Because maybe China or the US will be leveraging all the data that they have and the technologies that are built on the data. And countries like Greece, because they don't have the database, and they cannot run some of the stuff, again, that Lampros mentioned. You know, how can you detect cancer earlier? How can you predict the likelihood of getting a disease earlier on? If you don't have the data, and some of the data are not specific to your population, then good luck. So just to wrap up, and because I brought a lot of things in my answer, yes, data is critical for AI, and beyond AI, data is critical. Sometimes we talk AI and we miss the point that, you know, good old school descriptive analytics, often they're as important, or if no, they may be even more important. Like, you know, again, I live in the world of AI, but because that's the core of our technology, often we provide insights to customers with good old school data and good old school analytics. Like, it's a fancy thing and you know, a shiny item. The world will move there. There will be more AI inevitably, and that will be in many ways good for all of us, right? As long as we manage the risk. But, you know, data and good old school analytics are very important. And I think beyond I'll bring back to Greece, since we're in Greece, I think it's critical for the country to invest in data infrastructure, and that will help potentially unlock more entrepreneurship in the ecosystem, but will also help unlock better healthcare. This is a healthcare panel for all of us.
Thank you, Dimitri. Okay, we see a lot of potential in AI in healthcare. Lampros, what are the risks?
Yeah, risks in the use of AI in healthcare, right? So one is, you know, having good data, as you mentioned. So you need good data, and it's a challenge rather than a risk. Another one is privacy. So if you ask ChatGPT something and you give them the personal medical record, then all this information gets uploaded to OpenAI. So you lose your privacy component. Now you can combat that by using homebrew or locally installed LLMs like Llama. But you know, privacy is a big concern. So all this data might be getting stored somewhere. There's also bias, and as mentioned, your results are as good as your data is. And if there are biases in your training data, then biases you will get in your results. So we have to be very, very careful what we put in the machine. The other one is stems from biases, and it's gradual drifts in models. And we see a lot of synthetic data being produced using AI. So you take real data, you train a system, and then a system produces synthetic data. Now, a lot of people will use that data, the synthetic data, to train other systems. So you can see that there might be cumulative drifts, that if there's one bias here, then there's going to be a second bias, and this could perpetuate. There are ethical factors for the use of AI, just like the use of any technology. How do you use AI? So just to the example that I was mentioning earlier on voice biomarkers, there came this company for investment that was going to analyze your voice as you call in your insurance company. You call your insurance company to ask about your bill. They analyze the voice and they predict that you're going to get a disease in 10 years. Right? And then they can raise your premiums, right? Because now you're at risk of developing that disease. And it's a plurality of diseases, right? And you can do the same, you know, similar things with eye movements, with expression, characteristics. So, you know, how do you do you invest in such a deal? I mean, there's ethics, right? You have to have ethics when you develop things, and of course ethics when you invest in different companies. So, so that's one thing. The other last one is liability, right? So a lot of people, and I think all of us here, are using ChatGPT. When something is wrong with us, we go to ChatGPT and say, "Oh, I have a pain here," or this and that, and it gives you a pretty good and accurate I don't want to say diagnosis, but an indication of what might be wrong. Who has the liability for that? So who is responsible for that? Is it the company that produces the AI? Is it the data that was fed into this? So again, these are legal matters that we'll have to address at some point. So, and I'm not trying to paint a dark picture here. It's just that we have to be prudent in the use of AI.
Lampros, thank you. It turns out to be pretty dark today, but I think that we somehow, because of the questions, we brought these things up, which is always good. Nico, I mean, you're a world figure in the microbiome, and so it's a specific, let's say, research field. I'd like to get your opinion how AI could also, let's say, play a role in your research and bringing of new ideas and technologies.
So yeah, my field is microbiome research, analyzing and trying to reconstructing pretty much the genetic blueprint of bacteria and viruses. And the whole field has been transformed the last 10 to 20 years from data. So as I said before, biology as a whole, definitely microbiology has become a data science. And all hypotheses pretty much are generated now from data and then moving into some experimentation. Some of the major revolutions that we have seen the last few years in biotechnology have come from this field. For example, the CRISPR technology. And I will add to that from universities, not from industry. The mRNA technology has come from universities. AI has come from universities and research there. So again, the main revolution in our field is data. And we have reached the point that it's extremely hard to analyze all of this data, to mine all of this data. For example, in the database that we maintain at Berkeley Lab, we have more than 95 billion genes right now. 95 billion genes, there is no other public database even close to that. EBI, which is a bioinformatics institute in Europe, they have the biggest database is 5 billion genes. So there is no way to analyze manually or even come up with questions of what is interesting in this data. So this is already where AI is helping. First of all, it's helping because it's transforming the tools, the computational tools that we're using to mine all this data, but then because scientists to a great extent are lazy, we are using it to actually make the discoveries for us. We are asking what is interesting in this data that we cannot really have thought up front of figuring out. So it's still early, but in my view, in the next 5 years, AI would have completely revolutionized what Lampros said before, which was the last point that in his previous remarks, data mining. In data mining, we expect a huge transformation. But again, as everyone said, it's the quality of the data. You need to have good quality data in order to have more valuable, let's say, applications through AI.
Very good. Simo, so what areas of biotech you think AI is not going to have a big impact or it's overhyped?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. I think the main thing that I'm thinking about is avoiding the hype. There's a lot of hype in this space. It's understandable because it's something that's very exciting, and most people are optimistic, and they tend to think of the good things that can happen, and so are a lot of investors, so they think of the upside. When I was a biologist and I was doing an experiment, I was thinking of the upside my discovery could have, and when I moved into investing, I had the same mentality. I said, wow, this is an amazing technology, microRNAs or miRNAs, this can really change things. And then after being burned multiple times and losing money, I realized that as an investor, your job is not to do good for humanity. I know that's not maybe doesn't make me super likable, but if you're a philanthropic organization or if you're a government agency, you should give money to things that are going to benefit humanity and your society. If you're an investor, your first priority should be to the people that gave you the money, and your goal should be to return the money in a multiple. So you're having that in mind. I think investors serve a very valuable role because they are kind of the gatekeepers of what's going to move forward. So wanting to do good and wanting to do well for your fund are not mutually exclusive. I think your first priority should be to manage the capital you are handling with the right risk parameters. Avoiding things that you see have significant downside potential, like a recursion at that stage, or putting money in recursion at the right price after he has failed. I think drug development is going to be significantly different in the future, but it's not going to be something we can imagine. It will be a lot more efficient. It will take less and less time. You have to have the right people making the right decisions. And we were on a meeting with the CEO of a big pharma a few months ago, and they said they're going to put in, I think, $8 billion in AI. And I think that's a great thing because most of that money is not going to produce anything, but there will be learnings and from which they can build on.
One question to you, Lampros. So you're putting together, or at least you're in the process of putting together a fund to invest in life sciences in Greece. Greece is a small market or a small place with definitely a good potential in the academic space, but and you say that you want to invest in AI-driven technologies for health. What percentage? Where are you going to find these ventures? How are you going to go about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is, I'm part of a team that started down at SEV, the Hellenic Enterprise, SEV, Σύνδεσμος Βιομηχανιών, where we actually collected and measured the ecosystem in Greece. And not to our surprise, a lot of the companies that are activated in this part of the world sit in the intersection of technology and healthcare. And a lot of the companies, and I mean the majority of what we registered had components that could be qualified as AI. So although this is in an immature environment here in Greece in the startup healthcare ecosystem, AI is one of the areas that is more above the average. So I'm not too concerned about that. I'm concerned about other areas of healthcare that need again to meet those standards. But AI is pretty advanced. I think Dimitrios knows the quality of work that has been done in the universities here, and the quality of people that come out. So I think this is one of our strongest areas.
Question for you, Dimitri, if I may. How do you build an interdisciplinary team that understands AI and healthcare and all this, blending these skills together?
It's a lot of hard work, but so practically, we are a team of about 100 people. We started in the US, and a year and a half after we started, actually we started building a team out of Greece. So the R&D hub is in Greece, In our case, it comprises of people with data science background, software engineering background, product management, that's kind of the cockpit, like business requirements and technical requirements, and biologists, pharmacologists, people with life science background. That's the R&D, right? Now, again, different applications and different. If I was building an AI biotech drug discovery company, probably the mix would be different, like less emphasis on software engineering and product management, right? But what we offer to the market, and by now we cover about 50% of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies worldwide, plus some mid-cap, where mid-cap in our space is 5, 10 billion, 20, 30, 40 billion market cap. So these are still large organizations like Ionis. It takes a different blend, right? But we're a software company, so we build data, and that's why we need people like the biologists and pharmacologists to help generate and curate data. Then we need to run AI, data science. That's why we need those people. Then we need to build this into a software interface, because that's how we work with the customers. So that's what we sell, access to a platform. And that's where also the product management team comes in, because we need, I can create something in my ivory tower, but most likely will not be successful, right? And that's why I mentioned before, version 1, version 2, version 3, you need to keep evolving with the market. That means that there are people out there who understand the customers, understand their needs, and keep building things or tailoring what we have to the customer needs. That's product management and bringing this back. There's another question in my mind. It's like, okay, we're building AI, but AI is omnipresent now, like with ChatGPT and DeepSeek, whatever people are using here. It becomes a tool in our everyday life, and that has a lot of efficiency gains, or efficiency gains potential with it, right? So the question, for instance, that I have been having the last 2 years in my mind is how we can leverage these technology advancements to become more efficient ourselves. Like, if a company started now, could they disrupt us and the market by being much more efficient, much less costly, much faster? And that's why what we have been doing is embedding AI beyond our core technology, but AI like the LLMs or the agentic AI into our core work. The way it happens in our case, and I'll give you a more idealized kind of view, but more of the archetype. But how we're trying to have it set up is what, for instance, Novo Nordisk does in our space. Like, they have a centralized function on AI. So everyone is meant to use OpenAI, I think in their case. And then at the functional level, everyone is supposed to do agentic AI and drive efficiencies there. That's what we have been replicating at Intelligencia. Like, there are people centrally who drive this. We have been giving access to everyone, and there are people functionally who are the champions and make sure that, in that, for instance, business development. It's not an obvious space for AI, but in many ways, it helps a lot with efficiencies. So in BD, there is a person who makes sure that everyone is adopting AI, and that we know how to potentially build more agentic tools and so on and so forth. So that's my broader view on it.
And I think we're going to see, just to follow up, I think we're going to see, AI being commoditized. Just like a few years ago, you said, I have the internet, or I have mobile technology, and I think AI will be commoditized, in everyday life, but also in businesses, and that's why it's so hard to find a business model that works with AI. Right? The economics of using AI in services, it's people are still working on that. If this becomes a commodity, which this is, I think, where we will be in a few years, how do you make money out of this? So I think that's going to be a challenge.
Thank you, Lampros. Well, it's 1 o'clock, and you know I've lived 35 years in Switzerland, and something inside me sort of. But I still want to give at least the chance for some of you to ask questions to our panelists here for a few more minutes, if you like. There's a microphone that can go around, and people like. We have experts here. If somebody wants to ask a question. Petro.
Yeah, so thank you very much for this very insightful panel. On the last note that you mentioned on commodities, could you compare AI with other commodities like electricity or other things that?
Yeah, exactly.
I
think it's going to be one of those. And I mean, you pay your electricity bill, you pay your internet bill, you pay your AI bill, which is probably going to be translating to electricity bill. But I think this is where we're going.
There's no opportunities to win through electricity or other commodities? I don't know.
Excuse me?
So there is no way one can make profit from something that is a commodity?
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm saying that, you know, the economics of AI is still unclear in a lot of cases. And perhaps that's the reason why we see a lot of companies, you know, going high and then, you know, dropping in valuation. But yeah, I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. It's just people need to figure out business models.
Yes.
Dimitrios for Dimitrios. I think that this panel and the previous panel, correct me if I'm wrong, is too centered on the West, particularly the United States and Europe. There's a huge world out there, China and India, and they are doing great things. I happen to have inside knowledge about it. They are doing great things, and they are directly competing with everything that is happening here, and they are probably doing it better. The quantum computing, which is very significant for AI, their quantum computers, I'm told, is 10 times quicker than the best US quantum computer, for example. Do we have a review of that?
I'll take a stab at that. I agree 100%. I've seen because there aren't economies of scale or scope necessarily in this space. Somebody that has good engineers, and many of them cheap, can compete. And in many cases, the companies that we've seen in India and China have better engineers than in San Francisco. In San Francisco, I have friends in Palo Alto who they're telling me that they cannot find good people for their companies because they're working for Indian or Chinese, and at the fraction of the cost. The ones that are Chinese or Indian nationals, they go back, and I'm skeptical how the US can continue to compete in that. I live in New York half my time, and I don't see a barrier or a way for the US and Europe to compete with these guys in this sector. They're not making weapons or cars, and even there, it's questionable. But in this area where there's a lot of US, European trained Indians and Chinese nationals that want to go back, and they're given, I've seen the packages they're given there. I think they're going to be ahead. If they're not already ahead, I'm not an expert in AI. If they're not already ahead. The other thing that I'll say, the companies that have not done well in the financial markets, I don't think it's because it's a commodity. I think there will be winners. I think the better AI companies will have an advantage, but it's just not going to be not everyone. The companies that have failed because their offering didn't work. It was not good enough. And there was a lot of hype. And in reality, I mean, there hasn't been a drug that's been based on AI. So I think the AI is not going to be a commodity. I think the right solution there'll be many winners, but obviously there'll be a lot of companies that will cease to exist.
There's a question back there. Yeah.
Hi, Dimitrios from Sustainable Forward Capital. The way I see things, and I don't know if you share the same opinion, I think we have shattered with AI, I mean, there are a lot of things that have been revolutionized. We have shattered the interactive dialogue limit of 120 words per minute. I mean, right now, you can have digital twins, and as Mr. Kourtis mentioned, I mean, you can have like all the doctors' appointments recorded, noted, and you can have these in petabyte speeds exchange all over the world and have like a summary of, you know, very subtle symptoms in just a few minutes. Are there any companies working on that, or have you thought how this could actually expedite or not things in the medical sector?
Yeah, companies like Ambience, for example, or Nambla, that's what they do. They listen to your, you know, to the visit. You know, while you go to the doctor, they listen to the whole process, and
I'm talking about the collective. So, I mean, potentially all of these visits from all doctors from all around the world globally can be combined.
Oh, like in a federated
Yes.
learning? Oh, that would be a great idea. That would be a great idea. I mean, there's a lot of privacy and data security concerns that I see there, but that would be a huge database. That would be a great idea. Good luck in the US. I mean, they're not going to give you the data in a single payer environment like Greece. If we can, you know, get the government to release anonymized data for further research, that would be great.
Question back there.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mircini Kafourou from Imperial College London. So there is a lot to be said about AI in healthcare, but I was wondering what are the panel's thoughts on end user acceptability and how the users like doctors, healthcare, clinical teams, and patients will be convinced to use advances of AI.
I can take a first stab. I mean, we have users. It's not easy to convince. People hate black boxes. So we were kind of forced to open the lead and provide explainability. So the drivers behind AI, so that we help foster the dialogue as opposed to, you know, give something that, you know, take it or leave it. So it's more of an enabling tool. That doesn't apply, by the way, in other cases. Like, again, if I'm doing a breast scan and I use AI, then I want a specific answer with some accuracy, right, that I can trust. So I would say it does depend on the use of AI. Like, you know, I was a couple of months back in SF, self-driving cars all around us. You know, I was riding them. I didn't care if I understood the technology. I cared that, you know, they could take me from one place to the other. Again, in our use case, some people do care, so you have to adjust.
Yeah, I think it's all about explainability. I think that, you know, in many cases there will be pushback from the medical community. If you present a diagnostic that is a black box, there will be pushback. So I think that AI now has potential, and this is where we should be working on explainable AI, where we can explain doctors something that relates to his books. So that's going to be important. And then, you know, maybe here in this room, so if you wanted your X-ray to be examined or your mammogram to be examined by a doctor or a machine, what you know, think yourself, you know, what would be preferable if you knew that the accuracy is higher? I have friends radiologists here in Greece, and they tell me that there are people from abroad, Greeks from abroad, that come every summer with the X-rays and CT scans, and say, I want a human to read it because they out there they have, you know, AI reading it. So again, there's always inertia. I think we're gonna go, you know, we're gonna go past that.
Excellent. If there are no other questions, I think we all give this excellent group of people a round of applause. Thank you all.